before you scroll, take a breath with me. Right now, something inside you brought you here. Welcome to Therapist Live. This is more than a channel. It's a space for clarity, healing, and real emotional growth. Here, we talk about mental health, self-awareness, relationships, and the patterns that shape your life. If you're ready to understand yourself on a deeper level, subscribe now and turn on notifications because this journey starts today. Take a deep breath and let's begin. The Last Human Freedom. Introduction. Welcome back. In the last video, we talked about the shock of arriving at the camp, the stripping away of identity, and the apathy that sets in just to survive. It was grim. It was about the destruction of the human spirit. But today, we are turning a corner. This second part of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is, for me, the most powerful part of the book. It's where Frankl stops being just a victim of his circumstances and starts discovering something profound about the human soul. Today, we are going to talk about freedom. Not political freedom, not physical freedom, but the one kind of freedom that nobody can ever take away from you, the inner life. You might think that in a place like Auschwitz, there is no room for thoughts of beauty or love. You imagine it's just cold mud, hunger, and pain. But Frankl discovered something surprising. Sensitive people, even if they weren't physically strong, sometimes survive better than the tougher ones. Why? Because they could retreat into a life of inner richness. There is this beautiful moment he describes. He is marching to a work site. It's freezing. He's stumbling in the dark, exhausted and starving. And suddenly, he starts thinking about his wife. He doesn't even know if she is alive, but he sees her face. He talks to her in his mind. He feels her presence. And that's when he writes one of the most powerful lines in the book. The salvation of man is through love and in love. In that moment, he realized something extraordinary. Even if everything is taken from you, your clothes, your name, your home, your future, no one can take away your ability to love. Love became his anchor. And what strikes me most is this. The love was real, even if she wasn't physically there. The emotional experience was real. The connection was real. The meaning was real. The external world was hell. But his inner world still had light. Art and humor as weapons. Another thing that shocked me was the presence of art and humor inside the camp. Frankl says humor was one of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. Think about that. Humor in a concentration camp. It sounds impossible. But he and another prisoner made a pact. Every single day, they would invent one funny story about the future. They would imagine themselves after the war, maybe at a fancy dinner party, and accidentally asking the hostess to ladle the soup from the bottom, because in the camp, that's where the few peas were. It sounds small, but it was revolutionary. Humor created distance. It allowed them, even for a few seconds, to step outside the suffering. And nature, too. Frankl describes prisoners rushing out of their huts just to watch a sunset, the sky glowing red and steel blue, and someone whispering, how beautiful the world could be. After everything they endured, the capacity to see beauty remained. That tells us something powerful. The human spirit does not automatically die under pressure. It bends. It breaks for some, but it can also deepen. The freedom to choose. Now we arrive at the core idea. Frankl asks a terrifying question. Is a human being just a product of their environment? If you treat a man like an animal, starve him, beat him, strip him of dignity, does he inevitably become an animal? His answer is no. He witnessed men who walked through the huts comforting others, men who gave away their last piece of bread. They were few, but they existed, and their existence proves something essential. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That sentence changed my perspective completely. We often say, my boss makes me angry. This situation is ruining my life. I can't be okay because of what happened. Frankl is saying, the situation is real. The pain is real. But who you become inside that pain, that is still yours. You could decide not to let suffering turn you bitter. You can choose dignity, even when everything else is gone. Meaning, responsibility, and modern psychology. When I finished this part of the book, I realize how radical Frankl's idea truly is. He is not saying suffering is good. He is not romanticizing pain. He is saying something much harder. Suffering is unavoidable, but meaning is possible. He quotes Friedrich Nietzsche. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. And modern psychology confirms this insight. Research on resilience shows that when people can place their suffering inside a larger purpose, a responsibility, a future task, someone they love, they endure far more than when suffering feels pointless. Stress with meaning feels different from stress without meaning. And this connects to many thinkers. Existential philosophers argued that we are responsible for who we become, even within limits. But Frankl adds something unique. Freedom is not infinite. Freedom is small, but it is sacred. It's not about controlling life. It's about responding to life. And that changes everything. The future and hope. Frankl also noticed something heartbreaking and profound. There was a connection between hope and survival. He tells the story of a prisoner who dreamed the war would end for him on March 30th. That date became his anchor, his reason to endure. But as the date approached and liberation didn't come, he lost hope. He fell sick, and shortly after, he died. Frankl believed his body collapsed when his hope collapsed. Those who survived were often those who had a why, a child waiting for them, a book unfinished, a responsibility not yet fulfilled. Meaning wasn't abstract. It was concrete. And this forces us to ask ourselves, what is my why? Not in a motivational poster way, but in a real way. Who needs me? What unfinished task gives my life direction? What responsibility is waiting for me? Because meaning is rarely self-centered. Frankl survived in part because he felt responsible to teach what he had learned, to rewrite his lost manuscript, to honor those who did not survive. Meaning comes from responsibility, and that is deeply countercultural today. We often ask, what makes me happy? What fulfills me? Frankl flips the question, what is life asking of me? That shift turns us from passive recipients into active participants. Applying this to our lives, we are not in a camp, but we all face loss, rejection, failure, illness, stress, and this is where Frankl becomes practical. Lose your job, and you can interpret it as humiliation. Or you can ask, what is this moment demanding from me? Courage? Reinvention? Face betrayal? And you can become cynical. Or you can decide not to let it poison your character. That is the last human freedom at work. It's invisible. It's quiet. But it defines who you become. We may not control events, but we control interpretation. And interpretation shapes identity. When Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning, he was not conducting laboratory experiments. He was describing lived experience under the most extreme conditions imaginable. Yet what makes his work so remarkable is that decades later, modern psychology has confirmed many of his insights. For example, research by psychologist Michael F. Steger on meaning in life has shown that people who report a strong sense of meaning also report higher life satisfaction, greater resilience, and lower levels of depression. Meaning is not just a philosophical concept. It is strongly correlated with psychological well-being. This supports Frankl's observation that prisoners who had a purpose, a future task, or someone waiting for them were more likely to endure unimaginable suffering. Similarly, research by Alia Crum at Stanford University on stress mindset demonstrates that how we interpret stress changes how our body and mind respond to it. When people see stress as something meaningful, as a challenge rather than purely a threat, their physiological stress responses become healthier and more adaptive. This directly echoes Frankl's idea that suffering itself is not what destroys us, but the belief that it is meaningless. The concept of post-traumatic growth, developed by psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, also aligns closely with Frankl's philosophy. Their research shows that many individuals who endure trauma later report deeper appreciation for life, stronger relationships, and a clearer sense of personal strength. Trauma does not automatically produce growth, but the way a person interprets and integrates suffering can lead to profound transformation. Frankl saw this in the camps. Not everyone broke. Some developed extraordinary inner depth. Hope theory, developed by psychologist C. R. Snyder, provides additional support. Snyder's research suggests that hope is not naive optimism. It is a cognitive process involving goals, pathways, and motivation. People with higher levels of hope cope better with adversity and even show better health outcomes. This lends scientific credibility to Frankl's observation that prisoners who lost hope often decline physically soon after. The mind and body are deeply interconnected. Even contemporary discussions about responsibility and meaning reflect Frankl's influence. The argument that responsibility gives life structure and resilience, seen in modern psychological and philosophical discussions, mirrors Frankl's central claim. Meaning is discovered through responsibility, not comfort. We do not find meaning by asking what we expect from life, but by responding to what life asks of us. Taken together, these sources show something powerful. Frankl's ideas were not only morally inspiring, they were psychologically accurate. His reflections in the concentration camps anticipated decades of empirical research on resilience, stress, trauma, and hope. What he discovered in extreme suffering now stands supported by modern science. That convergence between lived experience and research is what gives man's search for meaning its lasting authority. It is not just a memoir. It is a psychological insight forged under the harshest conditions and later validated by science. Conclusion: this part of the book changed how I view my own problems. We aren't in a concentration camp, but we all have things we cannot control. Frankl teaches us that we are not merely victims of circumstance. We are responsible for our response. He says we need to stop asking what we expect from life and start asking what life expects from us. Life is asking you a question every day, every hour. The question is, how will you handle this? After reading this, something shifted in me. Instead of waiting for life to become easier, I started asking what I can contribute. Even when life is hard, freedom is not the absence of suffering. Freedom is choosing who you will be in the middle of it. In the final video, we're going to dive into the philosophy Frankl developed from these experiences, logotherapy, and explore how you can discover your own why in everyday life. If this content resonated with you, please leave a like. It helps the channel reach more people who may also need this message. Share this video with someone who could benefit from it. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to subscribe and turn on notifications. We are here to share new content anytime to support your emotional journey. Thank you for being here. Take care of your mind. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next video.